Hello to our early bird audience. It is our pleasure to introduce our resident stamp collector.
Back by popular request, we have Dick Eassom. Dick, here's to you and Women on Stamps.
Thank you, ladies. So yes, Women on Stamps. What a fascinating project this was. I'm actually working on a virtual exhibit that was done by the Smithsonian in conjunction with the USPS. So we're only going to cover part of it because, my goodness me, so many amazing women on these stamps. But let's start with our Forming the Nation, the famous first ladies. Okay, so here she is, Martha Washington, the first lady, although she wasn't actually called a first lady back when she was the first lady, and she's the first American woman on a US stamp. So these go from 1902 onwards, and she's actually on 6 stamps with all the variants and things. Here is Abigail Adams, our second first lady, Dolly Madison, the 4th first lady, and of course, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the 32nd First Lady, who was very popular on a lot of these stamps here. Okay. Let's look at some pioneering women. This was a stamp that always fascinated me. That is the actual color. It's a very, very pale blue. It's hard to see. But actually what we got here is Virginia Dare, who was the first English child born in a New World English colony in Roanoke County back in 1587. We're not sure what happened to her. We know she was born because her grandfather went back to the UK to get some supplies. When he got back, of course, the Roanoke colony had all gone. All of the colonists had disappeared. Nobody really knows what happened to them. So yeah, we don't really know about her, but a famous person nonetheless. And here, of course, is Betsy Ross, who was an upholsterer, who actually is credited by her relatives for making the first American flag, which you can see at the bottom. There is a picture of her on the stamp presenting the flag to George Washington. It might not have happened, might have been a little bit of wishful thinking from her relatives, but it's a very iconic picture, and I'm sure most of you have seen that picture. And then finally, another pioneering woman here. Now, this woman I did not know about. This is Nellie Cashman, who was a nurse, a restaurateur, a businesswoman, and a philanthropist, and was known as the Angel of the Cassia after she led a rescue party to miners in Cassia Country gold mine in the Cassia Mountains of British Columbia. So a very famous pioneering woman. Let's look at the Civil War. Sorry, Revolutionary War. I'm getting ahead of myself. Molly Pitcher. Now, this is an interesting stamp. This is credited to Molly Pitcher. As you can see, it's actually an overprint on an old George Washington stamp from 1920s. Why is there no picture of Molly Pitcher? Because she probably didn't exist. This may be more inspirational than factual. She's a couple of people are credited with being her, but it may just be, you know, somebody who took water to the troops in the Revolutionary War. And the other one here, this is Sybil Ludington. She did exist, but she is sort of like the female Paul Revere, who at the age of 16 apparently got on a horse and went off to tell the British are coming, the British are coming. We were actually, my people were sort of ransacking, when we were ransacking Danbury at the time. So, you know, this may or may not have happened. It's one of these things that grows up later in the years and historians put fact on it, and we're not really sure whether it really happened. But again, it's inspirational, not necessarily factual. Let's move on to some people who really did exist. Of course, this is Pocahontas, who was part of this is from the Jamestown 300th anniversary set, who actually was very famous. She married an Englishman called John Rolfe in 1614 at the age of 17 or 18, and they actually went back to the UK at one point, and they were on the way back to Jamestown, and she was only like 20 or 21, and she got very ill, and the boat stopped, and they got off the boat, and she died. And so she's actually buried very close to where I used to live in the UK, in a town called Gravesend, right on the River Thames there. And another very famous Native American leader. Where did my seeing the wrong thing?
Just give us a second.
Okay,
A few
technical issue.
Yes.
Please hold. Oh, there we are, and we're back. Okay, another famous Native American here, and this is called Sacagawea, who was actually helped the Lewis and Clark exhibition and went with them through the West and actually helped get them introductions to local Native American tribes and leaders and help the success of that expedition. So let's move on. This is obviously, you know, a thing that went on here, fighting for equality of African Americans. This lady is Sojourner Truth, who was born Isabella Baumfree, and she was an abolitionist, women's rights activist, born into slavery, but she escaped with her daughter into freedom. And then after going to court to recover her son, she became the first Black woman to win such a case against a white man. Okay, and this, of course, we've all heard of Harriet Tubman, who was actually born Araminta Ross, that was her birth name, abolitionist, political activist, again, born into slavery. She escaped and subsequently made 13 missions to rescue approximately 70 enslaved people using the network of activists and safe houses known as the Underground Railroad. During the Civil War, she served as an armed scout and spy for the Union Army. And then in her later years, she was an activist for the women's suffrage movement. And then finally, this lady who I had not heard of, this is Ida Bell Wells Barnett, who was an investigative journalist, educator, and early leader in the civil rights movement and one of the founders of the NAACP. Talking of the women's rights movement, we've got a lot of ladies here. This is Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a writer and activist and leader of the women's rights movement, main force behind the Seneca Falls Convention, which for you ladies out there, it's a very important event. We have Lucretia Mott, who was an abolitionist, women's rights activist, and Carrie Chapman Catt, and all these ladies were involved in these early days here. So here is Susan B. Anthony, who we have heard of because she got herself on a coin, social reformer, and she was, you know, got the Congress to present an amendment giving women the right to vote, which became colloquially known as the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. And of course, eventually we now know this as the 19th Amendment, which wasn't actually drafted into the Constitution until 1920. Some other ladies who I had not heard of, Lucy Stone and Alice Paul. And Lucy Stone, again, was a prominent orator and abolitionist, suffragist. She established the Women's National Loyal League to help pass the 13th Amendment and abolish slavery, and then helped, of course, with the Suffrage Association. And Alice Paul, again, a suffragist, feminist, women's rights activist, part of the campaign for the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment was actually celebrated at its 50th, 75th anniversaries, those first two stamps. And then the last one was part of the Celebrate the Century series that the USPS issued. How are we doing on time?
We're doing
We're
great.
fine, great, because there's lots of ladies in here, really, really cool people. Okay, political firsts. Okay, so we have here, excuse me, Belva Ann Lockwood, who was an attorney, politician, educator, and author, one of the first female lawyers in the US and the first woman attorney to practice before the US Supreme Court. She actually was one of the first ladies who ran for president on the ticket of the National Equal Rights Party, first woman to appear in official ballots. Another first, this is Hattie Wyatt Caraway, who was the first woman elected to the Senate for Arkansas, the first woman to preside over the Senate, and the first woman to serve a full term as a senator. Margaret Chase Smith, the first woman to serve in both houses of US Congress and the first woman to represent Maine in either of them. We have Frances Perkins, who is a women's rights advocate who served as Secretary of Labor from 33 to 45, longest serving in that position. First woman ever to serve in a presidential cabinet under FDR. And she helped develop the policy for Social Security. We have Patricia Roberts Harris, who was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and the Secretary of Health, Education and Welfare, first African-American woman to serve in the US cabinet and first to enter the line of succession with the presidency. And she'd previously been the first African-American woman to represent the US as an ambassador in Luxembourg. And then finally, with these ladies, we have Frances Elizabeth Willis, who was a diplomat. She was the US ambassador to Switzerland, Norway, and Sri Lanka. First, she's actually the third woman to enter the US Foreign Service in 1927, and the first woman to make an actual career of it. So, we would be remiss if we did not look at the first ladies on stamps. So here's a question. Who was the first woman on a US stamp?
Who was it?
It was Queen Isabella of Castile.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so this is the set here from the 1893 Columbian Exposition issue. So here she is with Columbus. This is a $4 stamp, which will probably cost you about $1,000 if you actually wanted to get one right now, okay? And then, of course, who was the very first woman on a stamp? Super easy.
Who?
Queen Victoria, of course.
Oh my. Oh,
Of
I know.
course. So
An
this is,
easy
of course,
question.
the famous penny black from 1840, the world's first postage stamp with, of course, Queen Victoria on it. Just if those are interested in prices, this is about a $2,000 stamp.
Wow.
Hard to get through the expense account on that one.
A little bit.
Speaking of queens, will there be a stamp in the UK about the upcoming anniversary of Wimbledon?
Yes, I believe there is a set of stamps being issued for the, what is it going to be? The Diamond Anniversary, Diamond Jubilee. Yes,
Oh.
right. There we are.
That's super cool.
So there, if you're interested, go to the Smithsonian. There is a virtual exhibition of all of these ladies. I've actually started collecting beyond what you've seen today. So it's actually fascinating. I've learned a lot putting this together.
That's so awesome, Dick. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And we'll
Thank you.
have to have you back.
We have to
Yes,
have you
love
back.
to be back. Thank you.